So today, internet sleuths, are they a help or a hindrance, I suppose, is the main construction there of the podcast today. How do you feel about them, Yaz? Do you want to tell people a bit about who they are, what they are?
Yeah, so, when there's high-profile cases, particularly in the case where maybe someone's got missing or something like that, or where it's unclear initially what's happened, you'll often, and I think particularly with the internet and social media and the way in which information, can fly around so quickly nowadays, that people believe that they maybe know what's happened, or that sometimes when there potentially hasn't been some kind of foul play, but that there has, and they think that they're pointing the fingers at people, and it's, it's quite intense.
It is intense, isn't it? I suppose it's always been around through history. We mentioned the internet, but if we look at things like witch trials, that's essentially people sleuthing or investigating themselves and going, they're a witch with no evidence. It's been there.
Yeah, and I think witch trials are an interesting one in general because it tells us a lot about kind of gender and what they thought of specific women in particular and the ways in which they acted outside of their normal roles.
Yeah, and I love the whole notion that you'll drown or whatever if you weren't a witch, but if you were, you'll fly off.
Yeah. You'll just go.
Because if you were a witch, you'd attend the trial, wouldn't you? Of course you would, if you could fly away.
And then afterwards, you can imagine them like, oh, well, that was horrible.
Oh, we've killed another normal human.
Another non-witch. Awful.
I wonder how long it took them through history to go, hang on a minute, they all seem to be dying. None of them seem to be flying away.
Awful.
But so they've always been there. You said internet's come along, things like Reddit and those things have come along to kind of exacerbate, I suppose, the ability to sleuth, if we will, for a very wordy sentence. But in that sense, in modern time, we can still see it happening. We've had cases recently like Jay Slater, the gentleman who unfortunately passed us on holiday, and then straight away we see lots of rumours. And, things about him thieving, things about him disappearing with certain people who might have affiliations to other things. How does that impact the family? You're sitting at home, something's happened abroad to one of your loved ones, and all of a sudden the internet's sending you hate or wild conspiracy theories.
I mean, it's incredibly distressing, isn't it? Yeah. I can't imagine what those families would go through when they're, waiting to hear news on a loved one. Yeah. And the internet is going wild for, trying to figure out what happened. But also, I think we can't forget that the media, the printed news media is also really at fault here sometimes. And we have relatively strict rules about the ways in which things, not even that strict, we have rules about the ways in which things are reported. But I think you only have to look to other countries where the rules are much stricter to realise how much the media can raise questions and, say, are the police not doing enough? And all of these different things, which are actually incredibly harmful.
Yes, harmful to the investigation, harmful to the services, and of course the victims and offenders and wider family community members are definitely kind of impacted from it. We saw it as well with Nicola Burley, the gentleman who was on the government's list as a certified diver and rescue guy, whatever you want to call him, he got removed from the government list after his failed attempts, or the constructed failed attempts of him unable to find her body. And again, he's now got repercussions for his reputation, and also those sleuths have kind of maybe played a part in some of those things, which isn't the best, is it?
No, and I think maybe there's some lack of understanding on the part of the public. And, on my part, I've got some knowledge of policing. But, police are highly trained individuals. The people who are trying to figure out these cases, they're taught how to do it. Yeah. They've got a whole team at their disposal. They have a really, a methodical plan of what they're going to do. But also they have to do it within the rules of what they're allowed to do. They have to do these things legally. They have to search for things properly. So partly so that they're not, barking up the wrong tree, but also so that when it goes to court, if it is something like that actually they've collected the evidence properly, that things can be admissible in court, There's all these different things.
And they're high-profile cases.
Yeah.
They're not lower-level crimes, petty crimes, as we'd call them in social science criminology. They're high-profile cases. There's detectives and lots of kind of resources being thrown into them in that sense. But so why do people love doing those investigations when it's not our remit?
Yeah, so I guess part of it comes back to some of the true crime stuff. And I guess the rise of popularity of true crime maybe makes people more engaged with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think as humans, we really want to know why things happen.
Yes.
We really want to have the complete story in our head that we can understand, exactly what happened and who and what and why. Partly as like a defense mechanism or a survival strategy if I can understand exactly what happened in that scenario, maybe I can stop that from happening to me. And I think realistically in the UK, unsolved murders are quite rare.
Yeah.
So when they do, or when something happens that potentially could look like that, although, a lot of the cases that we spoke about aren't, it really gets people concerned.
Or grips them as a hedonistic, maybe, like a pleasure to discover what's happened and be the first to know, and maybe get some status off being an uneducated investigator or whatever you want to call it, maybe something like that. But there seems to be a lot about it. Do you agree with them?
I don't know. When I look back to looking at social media and the comments that people put under, I think particularly with Nicola Bulley, and everyone was like, there's something wrong here, something's not right. The police need to look at this, the police need to look at that. And to be honest, I found it a bit annoying because the police aren't going to look on comments and be like, oh yeah, no. You're right, we should look at that.
But at the same time, they have to consider them, don't they? Which...
Well, yeah, but not ones that are just on Instagram or something. No. But yeah, in general, if a member of the public said something to them, as a tip, I guess, they might do. But yeah, I feel like it probably, with everyone who was, because didn't they put out a call for information and there's so many phone calls and they have to follow all those avenues.
Yeah.
And people obviously believe that they're doing the right thing, and people should, if they have seen something that they think is genuinely 100%. Linked, they should.
Yeah.
There's a fine line between wasting police resources for something that turned out, it was a tragic accident, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that it just all became quite mixed up. And really then the main story was about how the public dealt with that.
Yeah.
The main story was the people rather than just the really sad case. Things were released by the police accidentally about her, personal information about her, which as a... she had young children.
Yes.
She had a partner, family members. That's really awful to hear. You don't want, you want your loved one to have dignity, regardless of what's happened to them.
Exactly. And that's going to be enshrined now in kind of criminal history, if you will, or crime history. Every time that date pops up, where it was Nicola Bulley, then people are going to talk about that again, aren't they? Her kids are always going to have to see that. We see it with other cases, not technically sleuths, but things like Maddie McCann, Amanda Knox. Every time it comes up to that date, there is kind of a martyrdness of them, or a kind of place in history because of who they are, regardless of if they did it, didn't do it, if they've been found, haven't been found, whatever it might be. Then those people are kind of... created as a status, aren't they? And like you said, things about Nicola, unfortunately, were constantly released. She's drinking a lot, she's unhappy, all these kind of things which aren't always factual or always correct, which then...
And didn't need to be released to the public regardless. Even if they were correct and the police needed to know them, fine. We didn't need to know them.
No, because they don't have any implication on the case, most of those things. There's nothing there that's going to help them. Well, we've discovered this now because of what people have been saying. But 100%, the sleuths are gaining more popularity. And I suppose people in those spaces online are, aren't they? We're talking now about this stuff. We can come about it from an academic point. The resources we have are much more kind of not accessible to the public in terms of journals and things of that nature, current research. But yet I feel we won't get as much traction as a female, male, whatever, who is...
simply relaying the facts.
Exactly. Because when they say they're sleuthing, but it's a current investigation, all they're doing is reading out news reports, essentially on their channel, or regurgitating what they've heard on Good Morning Britain or something, as opposed to some nuance or evidence, or I know somebody that's was there, or whatever it might be. There's nothing factual coming out of them. So I suppose it doesn't annoy me, but it confuses me that in the world that people with less credibility and kind of experience in the industry, whatever it might be, seem to get more traction, credibility, views, whatever, than others, which then skews it even further.
And ultimately, I would never think to comment on an active police investigation. No. Neither would you. I know it wouldn't. No. You might discuss it, like, have you seen this? I wonder what happened.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't really be from any perspective of thinking that we know what had happened. And I mean, sometimes, if a woman goes missing, if a woman's found dead at home, more often than not, I'll think, is it a partner? Is it an ex-partner? But that's because statistically I know these things are likely, not because I'm actually accusing that person. And I know that's what the police will look to first. We know that's what they'll do. And I wonder if some of it comes from a lack of trust, or people believing that the justice system is broken.
Interesting.
And that the police can't be trusted to do their job, or just a dissatisfaction with the way that they feel like crime is dealt with in general. And that when something like this happens, they think, well, I could do this.
Yeah.
I could do a good job of this.
So I suppose how far would you go if one of your loved ones had something happen to them and you didn't have faith in the police? That's kind of what we're talking about there, isn't it? Are you going to take matters into your own hand? Are you going to lose faith with lack of resources, police, whatever it might be, and then take things independently? I think that's where then it can come from. But obviously there are mass dangers of that in terms of overloading police with information that they then have to investigate, which then detracts them away from the actual pathway they should be on. It's kind of like school whispers in that sense, isn't it, when they ask for more information. But there's always been that connection with the police and media, isn't it? Even, for that golden age of policing, they were found to be telling press things they shouldn't to try and get some more information and throwing things out that way. So in terms of access to information, there's always probably been a backhanded way to get some, but these sleuths aren't doing it in that capacity. They're not, hacking into police databases and finding hidden information and all those kind of things. They're kind of just disrupting the investigation. It's about dignity, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I just wonder, in what world they think that they're going to find something. And I think it's one thing thinking, having a discussion with a friend about something, but it's another thinking that you can make some worthwhile contribution, I guess, to an investigation when you live on the other side of the country.
Yeah, or you have no interest in it or knowledge of it.
Yeah, you don't know the area.
I can envision some of these sleuths maybe sitting at home with a big whiteboard with loads of drawing pins and photos, and
that would make it more interesting.
Yeah, but nobody does that, do they?
No.
Police don't sit in the police station putting up evidence boards so everybody can see the evidence of an investigation, which would breach every kind of confidentiality and data protection going. It doesn't happen. Sorry to burst a bubble there for anyone thinking, well, I bet they do.
It's like, what was that? Is it Line of Duty? Or no, maybe not.
It's on Top Boy. No, it's on Line of Duty. Yeah. So, it just wouldn't...
No, it just doesn't happen like that.
It wouldn't take place like that. I suppose away from it, more harm is done, isn't it? You see hatred towards family, community members because of the conspiracy theories, if you want to call them that. I would say they're untested hypotheses that have no ground. But we often call them conspiracy theories.
And I think, we have the problems there if people are actually accusing people of things, people in that community, even if that person has done nothing wrong, one person says, oh, I think it was them. That is an easy way for gossip to spread.
Yes.
That is problematic. And that's the thing then, that often people who are just a bit different for whatever reason, that they might suddenly find themselves wrapped up in something that they have absolutely nothing to do with.
100%.
And suddenly they're being blamed for things. And even if the police know that they haven't done anything, even if, that it's unfounded, that actually that could be problematic. And I know that with the Nicola Bully case, because there'd been some of the people were saying like, oh, you know, they need to look at the partner or the husband, and I'm sure the police did that. But also just that's really awful, like really distressing to go through. And it's one thing for it to happen in a private setting where the police are doing their job in ruling him out, which they would have to do in any case like that.
Of course they would.
And then there's another thing, members of the public being like, oh, I bet it was him. People were like, there's something off about him. I remember there was lots of discussions about the way he came across in an incredibly traumatic time.
Yeah, of course.
Like...
Had it with Amanda Knox, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, how can she be hugging her boyfriend the day after her housemate, roommate has been murdered? Well, because she's emotional.
Yeah.
That's how.
Yeah.
It's pretty normal to be like, oh my God, I've just been through a real big shock. Got to give my boyfriend a hug outside, you know. And I suppose those people are then labelled. You know, when we're looking at the sleuth stuff, there's many of investigations out there that haven't led to anything or have wrongly accused people. Then those people are always tagged, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because you can't remove that label.
That.
Yeah, you know, and that's unfortunate. You're going to be walking down the road, you're going to hear people go, oh my God, that's Amanda Knox. Remember, she was the one who killed that her housemate when they were on a trip in Italy. Well, she didn't.
No.
They even tried to do her 3 times for it, which was really confusing and illegal. But, you know, the first judge in Italy was thrown out for assassinating her character. And now forever... she's Foxy Knoxy who killed that woman, who didn't kill that woman, and you know, she must hear that.
Yeah, and I suppose the thing there again is back to the media coverage of that, but the way that she was portrayed, particularly as, you know, a relatively attractive, young, white woman, and the way that she came across on camera and everything. She was, that was quite a big thing, wasn't it, really?
It was, and it always pops up, doesn't it, on ITV, you know, Amanda Knox episode and this, that and everything. You're not left alone. Even for even the bigger things taken away from sleuths, some serious crimes, if you've been accused of it, it goes into the public eye, and then you're found innocent, you're still labelled as that as that offender, and it must be a kind of very... distressing because you can't integrate back into society. No. You know, it's hard enough anyway if you have been convicted of a crime, let alone if you are falsely accused. And some of these sleuths can do that, can't they? They can really harm you as a person.
Really label one person as the problem when actually they're not. It is. And I just wonder where the fascination comes from. I don't know.
And I wonder if now, because anyone can create the notion that they are somebody in an online space, regardless if you are that person or not, everyone's a DJ. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's a music producer, everyone's a makeup artist, everyone's a fashion icon, but you're not. You are in a space for a couple of thousand people and only about 100 of them like it. So you're attracting 10% of your audience, essentially. If I said to you, I can't captivate 90% of my audience, you wouldn't find that impressive.
No.
But for some reason, these platforms now, you know, we could go home and start sprouting anything on a TikTok page about anybody, and TikTok, Facebook, whoever, don't fact check. They say they don't care for those things. That's not where they are in terms of checking the credibility of your story.
Yeah, because they did have fact checkers, didn't they? And then they got rid of them. And now it's... what do they have now?
No, nothing. No, as far as I've read, they're not... TikTok aren't there to check if what you're saying is credible. Which means then... passive listening, hearing 5 seconds of a lovely kind of clip or reel. You pass that on to your friend, they change one little detail, misinterpret one thing. All of a sudden, Chinese whispers, you know, and it creates real kind of community and criminal justice investigation issues.
And I keep seeing loads of stuff about, which is adjacent to this, but loads of stuff about vaccines, and suddenly, but loads of British content creators, so from the UK. So obviously the vaccine stuff in America, different thing, but, well, not different, but, and what do they say when America coughs, we catch a cold or whatever, something like that.
There's that saying, isn't there?
But I've seen more and more anti-vaccine content from the UK, and that is purely from people. And people are like, "I've done my research," and I'm like, "But have you?
Yeah.
Have you read the academic research?
No.
Have you spoken to a GP?
No.
Have you, done all? Do you understand that? I wouldn't understand the academic research on vaccines and stuff.
You've ever read a medical paper?
I know.
They don't have any words in. They're just numbers and stuff.
Yeah, they are full on.
Yeah,
you need to understand a lot of medical stuff.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't claim to understand that as someone who is trained, or not trained, but who understands a lot of academic stuff. But yeah, people say I've done my research.
So that's not sleuthing, but it's shaping beliefs and values.
But it's how social media does that.
Yeah, exactly. And the vaccine stuff is interesting because my previous institute, that's when it was quite big as well, just before I come here. So lots of the young lads in my first cohort where I was previously didn't get the mumps vaccine because they were the age group where it was in the press, blah, blah, blah. What happened?
Oh, yeah.
What happened in semester 1? They all got quarantined with mumps, and literally we had to cancel lectures. And all these lads had to then go get tested after to see if they'd lost their fertility.
Yeah.
They had, massive swelling. They were all locked in dorms
Really
for like 2
unwell,
weeks, 3 weeks. And they were the first ones I knew that hadn't been vaccinated with it. And then they didn't get their vaccination. Now they've all been really ill, missed half a semester of uni, and they're worried if they can have kids. So, those things, what we're saying is perception can sway people, even they're slightly off tangent from...
But just also those ideas about how people, like you say, are passive audiences on social media. And if they see enough of the same thing, they'll suddenly jump on that ship, apparently.
But then that's the trick, isn't it? Your algorithm will say, oh, you've watched that loads for the last 10 minutes. That's all that's going to be in your reels. Now we're going to show you loads of guys and girls talking about murder really kind of brashly down the mic for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And like you said, hypodermic needle theory, bit dated, fair enough. There's others out there, but it's that injection of media into you and then you taking it as gospel. You look at the War of the Worlds is the classic example of that. They're reading it on the radio. People thought there was literally a war happening and started packing up their clothes and stuff and driving off because they thought the aliens were coming, where it was just being read on the news one evening way back in the day. So you can see the impact's always been there, and there has been many negatives in many ways because of it in terms of shaping those future perceptions, values and beliefs. But to stay neutral and be on the other side of the coin, there are some good investigations that have been closed through sleuthing. More dated, though.
Yeah.
So it was more popular or more successful maybe in the 90s from what we're seeing. We had Abraham Shakespeare, who was in the 2000s. He won the lottery, right? He won $17 million on the lottery. And his friend then convinced him to start a business with her. She managed to, without him knowing, gain control of all the funds. So she had access to that lovely 17 million in the early 2000s. And then he disappeared. And she
suspicious.
Well, she claimed he'd left because he'd had enough of everyone asking him for money, and he's gone to live on a small remote island somewhere.
Sounds dreamy.
Do you know what I mean? I would have done that first, not after people had been asking me for money. But then sleuths got involved and they tracked an IP address, went straight back to his mate's location, and they managed to convict her with the work that the sleuths have done. So.
Yeah.
It does work.
Yeah, occasionally.
Occasionally, yeah, but maybe more harm than good in that sense. We've got a couple of other ones we can tell you about in a bit. But I suppose the other side of it is when is it a danger to be taking the law into our own hands? How are we protected as a budding independent investigator?
Yeah, I suppose the thing about the criminal justice system, regardless of what people think about it, is that it does have these protections in places for everyone involved with it. And innocent until proven guilty and stuff, these might sound like trivial things, but they are not. They are really important for everyone involved. And that's the thing, when we do this kind of detective work, we are not allowing people to be innocent until proven guilty. Yep. We are imagining that people are guilty from the get-go, and our own perceptions of the world come into that, the way that we view people.
True.
Who we might think is more likely to commit crime or not, because everyone has these biases, everyone has these thoughts.
Yeah.
thinking that they might think a certain group of people are more likely to commit a crime. I think particularly, racism comes into that quite a lot, and we see that. You know, that's not a strange thing to say. Everyone knows. You see that through the news. I see it so much on social media. People imagining, and we know that ethnic disparities exist within the criminal justice system because of structural racism. But actually, people see that as free reign to think that actually that just means that minorities are more likely to commit crime, which just isn't the case.
No, not at all. And I think you've hit some good points there about the fact that we have preconceived conceptions, bias, unconscious bias, and you hear it not in lectures or anything like that, but you hear it on when you're sitting with people and you watch the news and let's say a paedophile's arrested. Oh, well, he looks like a paedophile, doesn't he? Well, of course he is. Look at him. Look at his hair, or whatever. Look how kind of gaunt he is, or whatever it might be. Or you'll see a substance user. Oh, well, look at him. He obviously looks like a crackhead. Look how scruffy he is, or she is, or whatever else. And those are historical, I suppose. They're passed down through generations, or through your own environment, which we spoke about previously on other episodes. That's kind of not. Imagine if that's how police worked. He looks like a thief. I know they used to.
And I guess there maybe is a certain element of that, which is not cool. But we all do have our own biases. It would be silly to believe that we don't. And I guess that does come into it. And I think, we were speaking about kind of the paedophile thing and the paedophile, what do they call them? Paedophile hunters.
Vigilantes. Because everyone wants to be Batman.
And they'd been, that would be quite cool though.
It would be cool.
But I guess there's been quite a few things recently about like grooming scandals and kind of wider cases of child sexual exploitation. But then there's been lots of kind of vigilantism with that, but also lots of underlying racism with that as well, which is just really problematic. And really harmful, and has been jumped on by people who have their own political persuasions and their own political kind of message that they're trying to send to people. And it works because people are saying, oh, well, a certain individual said on his social media that these specific groups are doing this to our girls, and it's always our girls. Immigrants doing this, and and we see that, and that is just on so many levels just harmful. It just creates further divisions, or divides communities when they don't need to be. And it is just one hateful person or a few hateful people.
It's funny, I saw one the other day. Somebody posted on Facebook there. Does anybody know this gentleman? He was in the park when I was there with my kids, and I asked other people if they knew him. He seemed to be filming us. When we approached him, he moved on. Can somebody help us identify him? We're just a bit, concerned about who he was because he was there by himself. Brown gentleman. All the comments were about how he's an immigrant.
Yeah.
How can you tell he's an immigrant?
You see all
by
this
photo?
thing like The Usual Suspects. And I'm like, oh, come on.
So
now.
Everyone's worried about child safety, which is obviously
Rightly
the key
so.
thing to be looking at in this scenario. All the comments are about how he looks like an immigrant because he's brown. And then it incites hate. We've had other cases where sleuths have got involved, said things, and then police have had to come out and go, hang on, can we stop saying these things because you're enticing violence against other people that we don't know if they're involved or not. So then you're creating more tension in the community, then more tension between the police and the community. Why haven't you got this person? We've told you it's them. No, you can tell us what you like. You got any evidence? We've got to kind of prove it because they're high-profile cases. Sleuths aren't looking at who robs sweets from the corner shop. They're looking at murders, rapes, disappearances, big thefts of money, and all those kind of things where they feel hard done by maybe the criminal justice system. And again, maybe they've got previous experience, which hasn't left them in the best place because everyone experiences everything differently. So, there's lots to it in that sense. But the vigilante stuff as well, which we'll probably have to do another episode just on that, to be honest. But just to touch on it lightly at the end here, I love the work they do. They're very kind of factual with it. They come with evidence and stuff. The bit I don't like is they film it. There's 10, 15 of them around one person telling them who they are, which goes back to that previous point is you're now making them known to the community when you should be making them known to the police.
Yeah, and also, like we said, like the innocent until proven guilty, filming that and putting it on. And I guess, there's lots of stuff to say about like entrapment and I don't know. It's a really complicated one. And I know that it has resulted in some convictions. But I generally do not think it is a good idea for the public to take these things into their own hands. No. And I guess if people are concerned about these type of things, having wider discussions about what it is that makes people able to do these things. And I don't know.
No, I'm with you.
Like working with a charity or something, or you're thinking more broadly about, this isn't to say that the victims are ever at fault, but thinking more broadly about online safety.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, vulnerability and how can we help people.
Yeah.
Rather than working at the very kind of sharp end.
Yes. Of ostracising those people. Yeah.
Thinking more broadly about what we can do.
No, I'm with you, because some of these guys and stuff on the vigilante side, in terms of those being accused, some of them you can clearly see they've got mental health or they've got additional needs. And I'm not saying that means they can do what they do, but then to have 10, 15 people surround you at your house with no legal aid, not quite sure what's going on, some of them still live with their parents and they're older. That's why you need the criminal justice involved, for the sensitivity of who they are. Because at the end of the day...
And it is a process.
Yeah, it's a process. They're a person, and if they've done wrong, yes, it's a high-profile kind of thing, but they obviously need support. And to repair those parts of the community, I don't think filming them and giving it loads in a town centre because you've allegedly come to meet somebody underage because you're on a group chat is the most kind of healthy way.
Yeah, and it's all just... these are tenuous links sometimes that the people are making, and they are not the police.
Yeah.
They do not have to follow those rules.
No.
And it just feels quite problematic to me.
No, it does. And it's very much a big topic, both of these things, I suppose, because they are sleuths, because they're doing their own private investigations, even though they're looking at it from a specific crime within their community. And they would say, well, we're doing the job the police can't or unable to, or, like you said, these are our kids, our children. And it comes back to kind of constructions of who's here.
Yeah.
But it is a worrying thing in that sense that people feel so strongly, whether they're sleuths or vigilantes, to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah, and obviously I get wanting to protect children.
Yeah.
Entirely normal.
Yeah.
I have little children. I want to protect them. I would do anything for them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's I wonder how people got into it. Like, what makes them decide one day to...
Yeah, and I think that stuff grew traction probably like 2010, something like that, like, around that time, where it became more prominent. But
and I guess easier to access people on the internet, easier to set up those.
Yeah, of course you can, But is it entrapment? You've made that account to lure them in.
And I don't know lots of like the stuff about entrapment and stuff.
No.
Need to do some research.
It's true, but they're obviously they're crossing a line legally. Community would say, great. The support for them in the community is great, isn't it? It's quite strong, and people like seeing that something is being done, regardless of who's doing it, maybe.
But I guess it's just without due process, without the legal kind of safeties, we have to be careful who we're accusing of things. But then also, does it just stop at those crimes? Obviously. And I think people have a real emotional, upsetting reaction to paedophilia, because obviously it is awful, incredibly harmful, really impacts families, awful. But people have that really strong reaction to it. And I wonder, is it going to stop at that? Is it going to be other crimes? Well, we don't want people taking matters of justice into their own hands for lots of different types of crime. And just going around and accusing people of things. It's
because there was the former president of the Philippines, wasn't there? I don't know if you know this.
No.
He made a rule, I think it ran till about 2020, maybe just after, where if you suspect somebody in your neighbourhood is a drug dealer, you can shoot them.
Oh.
Yeah. And loads of murders and deaths, or whatever you want to call them, from about 2016, 17, when he come into power, till about 2020, 21. Well, I think he's a drug dealer, so I shot him. You could just take vengeance on anyone. Yeah.
It's a bit like The Purge.
Yeah. Literally, and it was out in the Philippines for a good 4 or 5 years. That was in place.
Wow.
And it was just like, sound. And he said they're all going to get the death penalty, and you can take matters into your own hand. And he was saying all these things, which created a bunch of, I suppose, sleuths and vigilantes out in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Imagine me and you have an argument, and that's the rule in place.
Yeah.
I could just be like, I shot her, she's a drug dealer. Like, that's why we had the argument. She was telling me she sold drugs.
She tried to sell me drugs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no proof. There's, like you said, there's no due process. There's no criminal justice or kind of fairity within that process.
And I think people always think, well, it doesn't matter because they caught these people who are bad people. Fine. Yeah. And, obviously it is good that they catch people who are bad people. But I guess having that lack of process, what happens if they suddenly turn up at your door and you haven't done anything? What happens then? That's when it becomes really concerning, isn't it? And that's why we have so many rules, like, about the ways in which the justice system works, the ways in which the police can work.
Yeah, the way they investigate, police and criminal evidence
are so important.
Yeah.
And they come from times when actually the police maybe haven't done things properly.
Yeah, of course.
And people have either had like false confessions, been treated poorly, like
long interviews without legal aid,
children not understanding, not having appropriate adults, all these different things. And actually, we wouldn't want that. We don't want that. These protections are in place for everyone in case suddenly at some point you get falsely accused of a crime.
And I think for the younger ones listening or engaging with social science for the first time, I think that's something we don't realise growing up. Like you said, there's lots of rules, but most of them have been put in place because something has happened.
Something's gone wrong.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Anything simple. People love serial killers, so we'll give them 5 seconds. Albert Fish, one of the first serial killers, way back in the day, he simply walked into a school, told someone that he's come to collect his grandkids, and then off he walked with 2 children and did whatever he wanted to them. So, something as simple as having passwords now for nurseries and stuff has come because something has happened.
Yeah.
It's not because we're ultra tight and, health and safety is a bit,
I don't think we are. I think, like, generally we are quite reactive to things that have happened.
Yeah.
That actually, this has happened, maybe we should put something in place. And that makes sense.
Do you agree with that, or would you prefer us to be more proactive than reactive?
It depends what we're looking at. In general, as a society, I would wish we were more proactive about lots of issues, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But I think you can't think about all the ways in which something will go wrong. No. Sometimes you have to see how something works. But, a lot of these safeguards have been put in place over time when they've realised that, something isn't working so well, or a specific group are being targeted, or, all these other things. And actually, that's a good thing. Yes. Being able to be reactive in that way is helpful.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think there's always going to be a grey area, isn't there? We could go watch 10, 15, 20 videos now about sleuths, vigilantes, paedophile hunters, and we'd probably agree with some of them, disagree with some of them, but they're getting a lot of support, I suppose, and status from community, especially communities, like you're saying, deprived areas, where, again, maybe certain people are being depicted as evil, and then for them to see something maybe happening and not have that understanding that it's a high-profile case, it's going to take months to investigate with hundreds of officers and resources. It's that understanding of how the system works, I suppose. I know we could sit here and say lots of negatives about it, but it's in place for a reason. Yeah. Else it would be the purge.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think as criminologists, it's our job to both, critique the system, look at ways in which it can be made better, but also understand the importance of some of these rules and how they protect us all. Yeah. It's not just, people often think that they're doing loads to protect criminals, but that is just not the case.
No. And then you hear those conversations of the lavish life in prison.
Which is also not the case.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you've been in a prison. I've been in a prison.
As a visitor.
Yes, we have not been to prison. We have visited prisons. I have also visited. They are not nice places to be. No. They are not holiday camps.
No, I remember the first time I went into a youth justice, a young person's prison. I was, about 24, something like that. Just started my work and that. And the only reason I wasn't worried is because I knew I was coming out in an hour. But you're going through a maze of locked door, stand there, locked door, stand there, locked door, stand there.
What gets
and I was like, I feel like the prisoners on the TV, stand there while I lock the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, if it kicks off, we ain't getting out of here. We've gone through about 15 doors. It's like, I've got to go do an assessment on a young person.
Yeah.
But I had that kind of calm mentality because I knew I was leaving.
Yeah.
God knows how I'd survive if I was in there for even 2 days.
Yeah, it's miserable.
Yeah.
Prison is miserable.
Yeah, and that doesn't help.
No.
In terms of for those guys and girls who have had, okay, you're an offender, but you need to be having a space where you can repair, reflect, and not be kind of victimised every day or kind of made to be belittled, which I suppose some of these vigilantes and sleuths can do to innocent people, let alone the ones that are guilty, which is kind of where that grey area is in that sense. But interesting still. Maybe we'll pick up a whole episode on vigilantes if we can. Maybe we'll get Johnny or somebody in here, from a colleague of ours that's a police officer, to see how they feel about people doing their job. But again, Yaz, as always, thank you very much for a very well-rounded discussion.
You're very welcome.
I shall see you soon, no doubt.